to Hogvillenet YouTube Live. The Razorbacks just won their 7th game of the season, 99-58 over visiting San Jose State at Bud Walton Arena in Fayetteville. That's where we're coming to you live from today. Hogvillenet YouTube, obviously. We do pre and post game. Lately, it's been a couple of post games, but we also have great content. Game stories already up at hogville.net on our website. You get quality work, whether it's football, baseball, basketball. You look at Dudley Dawson, Otis Kirk, veteran staff, bringing you the best coverage in all Razorback sports. More than just those three, by the way. We've really fanned out and spread out our coverage, and so go check that out. But let's talk Razorback basketball today. I thought, Arkansas being at full strength, this has been a second-half team all season long, and that was the case again today. Even at full strength, Arkansas did a lot of good things in that first half, only led by 5. And now you get into the second half and you blow this team out. You end up winning by 41. So Arkansas continues to kind of put things together at halftime. And I made the joke coming right after this game, walking into the press room, maybe Muss should consider, having his halftime speech before games. Obviously, he knows what he's doing. Sometimes I think with Arkansas, it's a matter of figuring out what the best matchups are, how to attack teams at both ends. And then Muss talked about it when I asked him about it in the post game. He said he thinks his team's conditioning and depth. We know typically, often, for years, he's had a tight rotation. But when you start to get things clicking and rolling like they did in the second half, you can afford to use more players on your bench, and then it starts to snowball. You do start getting into the legs of the other team. We've seen different eras of basketball in Arkansas, especially in the 90s, where second halves things kind of started to roll for those teams because of depth and sending guys in. We saw that today. But this is Arkansas's best shooting night of the season. Over 60% from the field, over 60% from 3, 8 of 13. Nick Smith Jr. really making his debut. I know he played 6 minutes, and technically it wasn't his debut. He was in the starting lineup tonight. He played 24 minutes, 0 turnovers, 16 points, 3 of 5 from 3, 5 assists. And now you're starting to see what Arkansas, with Devo back, he only missed a game, but playing over 20 minutes, doing some of the things he did defensively, 3 assists for Devo, does a little bit of everything to help this team as a veteran. You saw Anthony Black doing what he does. You saw Ricky Council getting to the rim, finding different ways to attack and get baskets, get to the free throw line. You saw Trevin Brazile. Tonight, I'm pronouncing his name right. He deserved that all season, but he certainly deserves more accolades after a 23-point night to lead the Razorbacks. He's been on again, off again. He was off in the last game. Tonight, he really, I thought, did a great job finishing plays, got to the line himself for some and ones, got to the basket, it seemed like it will, had some really good moves, putting the ball on the deck, getting by other bigs, and then getting to the rack. So you look across the board, you look at the depth on this front line. Mekhi Mitchell gets Arkansas off to a great start early. Then in the second half late, it was Jalen Graham, we've seen this before. He can really produce in a limited amount of time, but was very efficient. Musselman talked about rewarding him for a great week of practice. But this is interesting because these were the conversations we thought we would have when we go back to the European 4-0 run Arkansas had in the exhibition season when we got to see all these guys play. We thought we'd be having more of these conversations, but it took this long to get everybody on the floor together in the regular season. Arkansas 7-1. Maybe they go unbeaten in Maui if they had Nick Smith Jr., but you don't worry about that. You move on from that. Obviously, Arkansas's done that now, having won 3 games in a row. By the way, they've won 2 of these 3 against Mountain West Conference teams. San Diego State, which remains a ranked team, number 24 in the last poll, that Arkansas defeated in the finale in Maui. Everybody remembers that. Kamau Johnson with the big putback. I just spoke with him on the elevator and told him he better trademark that or I'm going to. He got a kick out of that. But look, today was a day after he had big games, back-to-back games for Arkansas off the bench, where other frontliners kind of stepped up. And you start to see the depth and quality of depth. And again, it's not that Musselman's going to now just play 10, 11 guys every night, but he has that luxury. And he has the luxury, even if he wants to keep it tight, 5, 6, or 7 players, of going to his bench if 1 or 2 guys aren't playing up to their normal standard or to his standards. And so this is a little bit different. San Jose State, here's a program that won only 8 games last year. They're 6-3 after today's loss. They're 2 wins away from matching last year. No one's going to claim this is a great team, but it was a good enough team to stay in the game, only down 5 at halftime. I thought Arkansas really just started to continue to pound the paint, attack, get into the legs. You saw turnovers, you saw blocked shots, and you saw Arkansas do what it does best. Now, again, when we look at how dominating this performance was, Arkansas was plus 20 in multiple categories. I think they were plus 20 in points off turnovers, plus 22 in points in the paint, and plus 21 in fast break points. That's beating a team soundly in just about every phase. And then Arkansas, which this is unusual because of the tight rotations we always talk about, Arkansas was plus 40 in bench scoring, 44-4. That's a huge gap for an Arkansas team. That's a huge gap in any game. But the way Arkansas and Musselman do things, you won't see many nights like that. So it shows you just how thorough this beatdown was. That second half, I don't know that I've seen as good a second half across the board for Arkansas. I can't remember the last time it's been that good. Again, San Jose State, we'll learn more about this team as the season moves on. But you beat anybody handily like that in the second half. It's a big statement for this. This team's going to be dangerous for everyone. I was joking with another one of the Hogs after the game about, would they like to see Texas in here? And of course, the answer I got was, maybe in March. Perfect answer, because that would be the only time you could see the Longhorns. And again, that might be the best team in the country, but I think Arkansas has taken big steps. Obviously, since that exhibition game, they haven't played anybody that good, but you've played a really good Creighton team. We just talked about San Diego State. That's a team that should be ranked and is. And we know that Arkansas has gotten better. Getting Nick Smith Jr. back, you're only going to get better. And let's talk about his performance. His first three gave Arkansas – his first three was his first shot that he took. He makes it for his first career basket. Arkansas goes up 5-2. Even though Arkansas was battling back and forth a little bit in that first half, before taking that 5-point lead at the break, he either scored or assisted on 15 consecutive points for the Razorbacks. And that's how you knew, even really in his first game with any meaningful minutes, that this guy is already making that kind of an impact. Because we've seen Anthony Black and Ricky Council picking up the slack all season with him out. And now you've got a third guy that can put up that kind of production, both as a scorer and a facilitator. And again, Smith ends up with 16, 5 assists. He drew a charge in this game. No turnovers in 24 minutes, so very impressed with him. Obviously, Brazil with 23 points. Jalen Graham coming in and getting double digits in the second half. And Council doing what he does. Some of his plays, getting to the rim, some of his finishes look like NBA stuff. And so now any night that Trevin Brazil's playing like that, and you've got all three of those backcourt stars clicking, you're going to see, you might see more lopsided games like this. All right, so let's start getting to some of these comments. Arkansas, by the way, holds another opponent below 60 points. Let's get to the comments. Team is dangerous. I think I've already read that one once. Some of these pop up and they fade off and then they come back around. Yeah, I think Arkansas, we're not going to see how dangerous they are against another high major team until they play Oklahoma a week from today. They'll have a midweek game on Tuesday against Greensboro out of North Carolina. So they'll be back home. They're 7-1 now. They'll likely pick up their 8th win before playing Oklahoma in Tulsa. I think Arkansas fans, the coaching staff, I'm sure they may not talk about revenge factors, but that's something that everybody wants to taste in this rematch, because last year Oklahoma really put Arkansas down soundly. I think it was a 22-point win in Tulsa, so you're back at the BOK Center. That's going to be a big game. So we'll see how dangerous Arkansas is. Not only Tuesday night, if you're Eric Musselman, you don't want to see your team take a step back in terms of intensity, guys playing to their strengths. We saw so much of that today. So you don't want to have a game where you take a step back. But either way, you pick up a win and you get into Tulsa, and that's a big opportunity for Arkansas to knock off a high major that just won a holiday tournament when Arkansas finished 3rd in Maui. So, there's something to be said for that. This team is fun to watch because they all care so much on the defensive end. They're unselfish on offense. It's interesting you bring that up because I think that's true. We only saw 4 assists against Troy. And one of the things I didn't mention, Arkansas had 22 assists today, which is a big step forward. A different matchup, different kind of game, not as much one-on-one. But then on the defensive end, I'd mentioned that Arkansas seems to be a second-half team. It's both offense and defense where they really start pushing the right buttons in the final 20 minutes. And I think it does start on that defensive end. And Arkansas got in its transition game today. That's been kind of hit and miss this season. Arkansas was really good. Again, I talk about the shooting numbers, but I think a lot of that it was because they had a lot of high energy on defense. And once you start wearing the team down, it starts to snowball. And I thought Arkansas was getting to the rim and having its way. But then they stepped at the free throw line and make 17 to 21. That's big time. And your opponent, that did pretty well in the first half, 4 of 8 from three. You hold them to 2 of 11 from three in the second half. You start to really reduce and shrink down the production from the best player on the team, who had a really good first half, Amari Moore. And then the big man that really had a big first half, Arkansas, pretty much erased him in that second half. So that's what Eric Musselman coach teams do. Not only do they come in with really great game planning, I think their halftime adjustments and getting players' attention and getting them to execute the way that they need to is always big coming out of halftime. And, Musselman spoke to the fact that whatever the reasons are, he talked about conditioning, he talked about the depth, but he says that his teams in the last few years have been good second half teams. So it's not like this is an anomaly. This is Arkansas basketball. The biggest threat in the SEC for this team, well, I think there's several. I count several. I think Kentucky, Auburn, Alabama, and Tennessee. You could make a case why Arkansas is the best team in the SEC. Right now, they're tied with Bama, 11th nationally in the rankings. So those two are the highest rated SEC teams. You can make a case, I think, for either one of those teams right now as being the best in the league. I personally think Arkansas may have an edge this year once all these pieces get this December behind them. Now, they'll finish December opening SEC play on the road at LSU, but right now, I think you're still looking to see how this is all going to come together. Today it came together beautifully, but I think it's one game and it's too soon to suggest Arkansas is hitting all cylinders with all of its players. And so you want to see more of that before you really project who's going to be the best team in the SEC. But I think Arkansas's got the pieces to be that and be in that discussion, be in that argument. And the rankings right now back that up. And that was before you had Nick Smith Jr. playing more than 6 minutes so far as a freshman. Again, when you look across the roster today, I thought everybody played, everybody got in, and everybody produced in some way. We don't even talk enough. I keep saying it. We don't talk enough about Jordan Walsh. I love his energy. I love his aggressiveness. He's got a little mean in him defensively, and he attacks. There was a play in the first half where it was a close game. He gets a rebound off a missed free throw and gets a stick back. That helped Arkansas get out to that 5-point lead at the break. He does things in games that help you. He's very active around the basket and good that way. I think defensively he's going to get better and better. The more that he gets confidence in what he's doing offensively, the more that he lets the game slow down a little bit and not foul as much. I think he's going to be, huge. This was, by the way, you talk about the 3 5-stars, the first time they started a game together in their college careers. Nick Smith Jr., Anthony Black, and Jordan Walsh. I thought that was also, Hog fans have anticipated that for so long, especially when those guys were all signed. And you saw those guys in combination in Europe. This is different. This is the regular season. This is where it counts. And this was the first time, 8 games in, that they were on the court together to start a game. So I thought that was pretty cool in addition to being key, because I think you're going to see, obviously, those 3 in your top 6 or 7 rotation, because not every night Arkansas is going to be able to empty the bench and go with a 10 deep. That's not Eric Musselman's DNA. It won't be in tight games most likely. The physical condition of this team and the way the defense grinds is phenomenal. Yeah, it is. It is phenomenal at times. You can really see other teams getting, frustrated, but they look inept. And you got to give Arkansas credit for that, because we've seen it play out so many times in second halves where things were working maybe for a team in the first half. Arkansas starts taking away things while they start to figure out on the other end how to make it snowball. I keep using that word because that's what happened. Anytime you go from a 5-point lead at halftime and you win by 41, it got snowballing in those final 20 minutes. And I just thought, the early, first few minutes of the second half, maybe it was a 1-possession game. It was still kind of close in Arkansas. I think Smith had 5 points in a run that put Arkansas, his next 3, hit a 3 that gave Arkansas a double-digit lead, his third 3. And from there, Arkansas just built on it, and it went from 11 points to 41. And, that, again, I don't care what the level of competition is. I don't care the quality of it. Anytime you can put that together in college basketball, it's a big deal. And it's why I think Arkansas, we understand why this team is ranked 11th nationally. And with Nick Smith back, there's a trajectory. I see an arc to this to potentially be a top 5 ranked team. Down the line. Let's see what they finish out December. If they went out in December and start good in SEC play, you might see it that soon. It depends on what other teams do as well. Want to see more questions here that, like I said, they pop up on the screen, then they fade off. And I apologize for the delay today. Normally I like to come on right after the game. I filed a story with Hogville. I was also doing double duty, filed a story with the Associated Press. So a little bit behind. Then my phone was a little slow to come on and get this going. I'd love to see some set three plays against teams when they play us in zone. Yeah, you're looking at zone meant to force Arkansas to shoot. It's not a good three-point shooting team. Today it was. Nick Smith Jr. is part of that puzzle. Anthony Black, he knocks down another three today, continues to get better there. We know Ricky Council's going to hit one or two a game. Trevin Brazil can step out and knock it down. And we think Jordan Walsh is going to be a guy that's going to start doing that. Musselman's talked about that in the midweek press conference. I think he is a guy that's going to help Arkansas out there. It's crazy Graham barely sees the floor so far. Well, but Arkansas, again, you go back to the rotation in tight games. Musselman's going to roll out with guys he trusts. Don't ever forget he tweaks his rotations and lineups midseason when Arkansas hit some snags, and here we are just barely out of November and into December. So let's see how things play out. Nobody was mentioning Trey Wade's name this time last year other than he wasn't on the court much, and then we know what happened there. So let's see for everybody. Mekhi Mitchell's done an outstanding job starting games. He's been a really good first half player for the most part. And some of the second half, we've seen his twin, Mikal, come off the bench and help Arkansas. We've seen what Kamani's done and what he's capable of. He's always there to come in and give you that injection of energy and physicality and leadership. And then, when we look at who did I leave out there? Well, Brazil is a stretch four. He's been up and down. Tonight he was up. Definitely had a big game. And anytime he's on and your three backcourt stars are on and then everybody else is filling in, and given that supplemental production, you see what happened. I mean, 41, 99, Arkansas is not a big scoring team typically. And to hold another opponent below 60 and then you're pushing 100, it says a lot about how this team is feeling it, at least to start December. Now we'll see where it goes from here. But again, you've got Greensboro, you've got Oklahoma next weekend at Tulsa. Then you get another team out of North Carolina, Asheville. You've also got Bradley and North Little Rock. And then you end the month and get jumping into SEC play on the road against an LSU team that's probably doing pretty good, all things considered. New coach, turning over the roster. They're off to a decent start. Anytime you go on the road in the SEC, that's not easy. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. But I think Arkansas, Eric Musselman would like to bottle some of what happened today. Big time performances. Pinion's got a nice shot. Yeah, he comes in and knocks down that right corner three. He battled and he got a defensive rebound, then he got one on the offensive end. And it looked like I think his shot got blocked and he fought for the rebound and then stuck it in. And so, Pinion's a good basketball player. He's a good basketball player. He's on a loaded team when you look at the talent level and what some other guys can do. But he's a guy that I think is going to be a good player down the road. It's a matter of time, not calling for that this season. Although I do think there'll be moments where maybe he can come in. I mean, he did the other night when they brought him in to possibly be a shooter at the end of the half. And there's been other instances. So, we'll keep an eye on that. I thought Darian Ford did some good stuff in his minute tonight. I thought everybody did. The walk-on Kate Arbogast comes in and knocks down, buries a three. Jalen Graham's really skilled and crafty around the basket, man. That guy's got good touch. He's got good moves around the basket. And then, when he's locked in defensively, I think he took a couple of charges. A couple of games ago, he was not getting back in transition defense. Musk got him out of the game, and, it's been kind of quiet with him. And obviously when they went to Maui and since then until tonight. And so, again, guys are going to get opportunities. You're going to make the most of those minutes when you get them. See what you can do with your role to increase it. But with this kind of depth, it's a nice problem to have for Musselman because – I don't think he's had front line and backcourt. I know he hasn't. Not the level of talent, not the level of depth, and not the level of options. And when you've got an NBA mind with all those toys, look out college basketball. And again, Arkansas's got the one loss. Nick Smith wasn't part of that. Went to the wire against a very good Creighton team. So we'll see as we keep watching this team develop, how everybody kind of falls together into place now. Because it's been a long time since Europe, and that was a different game, different levels of competition, different rules. Now everybody's back. Everybody's back again. And today it looked like a team that had been playing together for a while at full strength, not just the first game back together. I thought that was, something significant to point out. And again, Arkansas does what it's expected to do. I don't want to blow it out of proportion. They beat They won the game. They should have won the game. I don't know that anybody would have thought they would have won by 41, though. If you did, let me know, because I didn't. I thought they'd win, by double digits, but not 41. All right, so we're about 20 minutes into this. I've got battery, I think. We're just rolling along here. I'm curious to know, and this is something that in the press conference, we're not asking details about certain things, but when Musselman talks about conditioning and his team being well conditioned, that's come up a few times. And really what we need to find out is what's the key to that? What are they doing? He may not want to talk in depth about what things are working and give away secrets, but when you do go tight rotation, you better be well conditioned. Again, today that wasn't an issue, but just in general, they have been a good second half team. Something I've noticed, over the last couple of years, they seem to win even in close games. Those tight game possessions, 1 or 2 possession game, last 3 or 4 minutes. And sometimes it's not just about being the smarter team, and part of your executions also comes down to your conditioning. Sometimes you just got to have a little more wind than the other guy to finish plays. And so that's, really only lately has he been talking as much about that. So I'm probably going to pester him the next press conference we have to find out more about that. And then the other thing when he's talking about depth, again, the options he has right now. I think we'll see when there are games where he's drilling it down to 7 or 8 guys. If 1 or 2 guys, like I said, if 1 or 2 guys aren't delivering, he can go pull someone else out and they get the minutes that night. So you might still look at the box score and only see 6 or 7 guys playing 20 or more minutes, but you might have seen 8 or 9 guys that checked in that played, and he just went with the hot hand or the guys that were doing what he needed. That's why Kamani Johnson is a luxury for multiple reasons, because he's a guy, whatever it is you figure out you need from him, he's going to go in there and deliver. And I think that's huge to have that kind of a veteran. I think Devo Davis is another guy that can serve that way and has. But Devo's been, a guy that's factored into the plans more offensively in the past. There's a lot of firepower on this team. And there'll be games like today where he's doing the little things out there, not only on the defensive end, getting assists, the hustle plays, the energy plays. I thought some of his passes were outstanding. Arkansas really needed him. 1-3-1 working. I'm curious as to why they switched. Well, because teams typically are going to switch things up just to keep teams guessing. Even when stuff's working, Arkansas does a great job of making their own adjustments and figuring out ways to attack. And so I think there's, Dudley Dawson's probably already interviewed the opposing coach, and he might have asked him about defenses and things like that he'd go into why he. And this is a great answer. The big guy, foul trouble, he came out with 2 fouls. Anytime you have to take him off the floor, you're going to be obviously changing things with the way he was playing. That was the Ohio State transfer, right, Dudley? Yeah, big guy that can play, and so obviously your personnel, especially a guy like that, is going to dictate things you can and can't do, and that happens in basketball. But I thought, again, when I looked at San Jose State, Arkansas's been, and its program's been in places where it wasn't winning a lot of basketball games. It's been a while now, but it has happened. And this team is 2 games away from matching its win total. So it's improved. Coach is in his second season. He's been at the high major level in the past at Nebraska. But you're looking at, a team that I'm not going to go on a limb and say is going to finish in the top half of the Mountain West. But I am going to say that's a very good conference. And this is a team that, to me, just looking at what they did last year, has already improved. And so, it gave Arkansas a good half of basketball. Again, there are no more bye wins, really. You can lose any game out if you come out flat and other teams have players. And we saw Arkansas once again, though, go back to the formula of figuring out what's not working, what will work better, what to take away from the other team, put all that together, and you had a runaway win again. Troy was only a 13-point margin, but that game Arkansas trailed in bunches in that game, even in the second half, with 7 minutes to go down 3. So to win that by 13, not a blowout, but you had that 17-0 run, and that was huge. So Arkansas just figures out ways to distance itself right now. And again, Musselman pointed out, his teams have been good at doing that even before this season. So with all this talent, once it all comes together, again, 11 newcomers that were on the floor together for the first time today, you got to think, what a great start that's a great launching pad to get it going. All right, Hogvillenet YouTube Live, we're still here about 25 minutes in. Go to hogvillenet.net, for your Razorback content. That's, again, to me, it's a veteran lineup. When you look at Dudley Dawson, Otis Kirk, and myself, and you got, coverage throughout Arkansas Razorback sports beyond the big three: football, baseball, and basketball. And so go check it out. Go check us out there. We love doing the YouTube lives as well. Capping the games and the team's performances, what the opposing teams did. As we move along. Again, I think I talked about it last time. I think Arkansas having that experience in Maui, in November, that soon, playing that quality of competition was huge. Part of that may be feeding into what we saw today. Just the fact that this team, has had some stiff challenges already, and then knew how to put down a team that was maybe not as good. Awesome to see Jalen Graham and taking charges. Yeah, I mean, you want him to figure it out on the defensive end. Eric Musselman demands that. If you're going to get on the floor, you can't just be good offensively. You're going to have to play good defense. Even if you're not a strong defender as part of your makeup, you're going to have to be a good team defender. You're going to have to get it, buy into the concepts, communicate, get to your spots. You can do that. Musselman demands it. And, Jalen Graham did some good things today. This is a guy that was second team All Pac-12 last year, and he's the 10th man on Arkansas's team right now. I mean, that speaks to what Arkansas has when you look up and down the lineup. I mean, it's a spoil of riches. When people ask the question, well, where does Arkansas stack up in the SEC? When we make comments like that and we know what's on this roster, it means Arkansas is built to be in the conversation as the best team in the league. They are. Now you go out and prove it. You got to put it all together. And I think this was a great showing for a team that hadn't had all its players until today. This was a great crowd at Bud Walton Arena, by the way, today. A lot of energy. When your team starts rolling like it was, it gets loud. You could see San Jose State kind of wilt under it. And I think it was obviously Arkansas's players, but, the crowd really got into it. They didn't have a chance. Kevin, good for Cade. What a special day for that guy. Yeah, he knocks down a three, man. These guys work hard. They're part of what makes Arkansas a great basketball program. Is they go to practice every day. They're competing. They're making the guys that are going to play the bulk of the minutes better. They're helping out. Cade's one of those young men that all I've heard is what a great guy is in the locker room as well. The team loves him. And they get to come in like that and step up. The guy can shoot. He got his opportunity. Big time three. Our fans probably wanted to see Arkansas get over 100 today. Close to it. Had a chance late. In the last possession, I guess. Didn't quite happen. But, yeah, he knocks down a three. And part of the festivities today, I'll call them festivities. When you win by 41, you don't need real confetti to feel like you just had a big celebration, because that's a huge win at the Division I level. Getting close to a half hour here. We're probably going to wrap it up in a couple of minutes. You can already see the Nick back. It makes so much pressure off AB and Rick. So here's the thing, and this is what I've noticed. Early in this game, Nick, he hits a three, but there were a couple of guys rolling the basket. He hit them with good passes. Arkansas didn't score on those plays, but it's the stuff we see AB do. We've seen Ricky do this as a primary handler. And now you've got another guy. So even when these teams go zone, if the ball's moving on the perimeter, at some point, any of those three can attack a soft spot in that zone, and now they're passers and scorers. And you've just added one more of those. And so, yeah, I think Nick being back makes Arkansas better in multitude of ways. Including his ability to finish a play as a scorer or a passer, a facilitator. And you see these teams, really stretching these zones out, expanding them, and really trying to keep Arkansas, either dare them to shoot when they see a slight opening, a little crack of daylight, but take away drives or have somebody helping. And I thought Arkansas was patient today. I don't think they overshot the three. I think that's obvious. 8 of 13. They didn't take a ton of them. They made a really high clip for what Arkansas is used to. But the rest of it was just attack. That's the strength of the team. That's the DNA of this team offensively. And then you've got to get to the free throw line. 21 free throw attempts, that's fine. But you knock down 17 of them. Arkansas's not been, it's been hovering around 70%, just a little below. You want that 81% night at the free throw line in addition to everything else. And again, Arkansas's not going to do this every game out. But now they've seen that they can do it. This was the kind of performance. I thought their offensive play against Creighton was outstanding. Creighton's an outstanding offensive team, and those teams just traded blows. Arkansas didn't have Nick Smith that night, and so you just wonder, had they had Nick in the fold and it had been a normal rotation and lineup at the time, would this team still be unbeaten and maybe ranked in the top 5? Maybe. been a second half team so far. We'll love to us put two halves together. Arkansas didn't necessarily play all that poorly in the first half. You had two players really play very well, I thought, for San Jose State, the big man and the guard Moore in that first half. And it was just enough to trade blows with Arkansas for a while. Arkansas shot the ball 50% from the first half. I didn't think they really got off necessarily to a slow start. I thought Nick gave them energy in the production early. Led with 11 points and 5 assists, at halftime. So in that first half. And so I think Arkansas did some good things. But whatever it is, you're right in the sense that they looked like a dominant team in so many second halves, whereas they're just kind of trading punches, it seems like, a lot in the first halves of games. I think Musselman will take it as long as they're winning, right? San Jose State's not a bad team. Well, we'll see. 6-3 now. I think they just came off their own holiday tournament. They went 2-1. They lost to North Texas. They've lost to Hofstra this year. So those are the two previous losses. They've got a win over Ball State. This team's probably going to match. It's got a chance to match its win total from last year sometime in December before they even get into conference play. We'll see if that happens. But, it's obviously an improved team from what it was a year ago. They've got good players. The big man, the transfer from Ohio State. I thought Amari Moore. They've got some other pieces that I find interesting. They shot the ball well from three in the first half. Again, this is basketball. But Arkansas is a second-half team. There's no doubt about it. I'm glad people recognize that. It was the first thing I brought up to Eric Musselman in the post-game press conference, because it's almost like we've seen this movie. Not only have we seen it before, we saw it 2 days ago. And then we saw it a few days before that. So it is kind of like the way it trends for this team. You go back to Maui. They were down 12 late in the first half. They cut it to 6 at halftime. And then now they get going, and they're right in that game. San Diego State, it was late mid-second half before they really came alive, but they did, and Kamani Johnson was a big part of that. Get that game to overtime, win it. So if you go back, Troy, so just even the last 4 games, even Louisville, Arkansas didn't really start pouring that on until the second half. It's a second-half team. I just went back through the last 5 games, and it's been the formula each time out. It's really, something to behold. But let's, going back to it, one of the other stats I want to talk about here, we talked about the 22 assists. Arkansas had 8 steals and 5 blocked shots. I think that's a great combination in those hustle plays, because we can talk about defense, we can talk about percentages, but I think you start to see Arkansas's versatility positionally. They got big players. Jordan Walls is 6'7", Anthony Black 6'7". These are mostly perimeter guys. Nick Smith Jr. is 6'5", but he's got 6'9" or plus wingspan. Devo Davis at 6'4". These are not small backcourt players. They're big. They're getting the lion's share of steals. They're getting some blocks in there. You got Trevor Brazil, who's got all that length. 7'4" on that 6'10" frame. Getting deflections, blocking shots. Ricky Council's 6'6". He's a menace at times because of his athleticism and strength and length. You just go down the roster. You look at the Mitchell twins; those are big dudes, and they're athletic. They've got length. Jalen Graham's no slouch, and he's got a skill level. Kamani Johnson, we know what he is. He's a bull. He's a wrecking ball. So Musselman can figure out game to game how to use all this. But when I go back to the stat sheet and I start seeing all the hustle plays start to add up, I'd love to see the deflection count. I think he said they were just under 200 passes and getting to those 22 assists. I don't think he brought up the deflection numbers. I'd love to know that, because in addition to the 13 total, 8 and 5 when you look at steals and blocks, how many deflections did this team have to disrupt possessions? Sometimes you can end a possession and spoil it, even though you don't get a turnover right away. It'll lead to maybe a shot clock violation or a missed shot. And I think Arkansas has been really good, especially in second halves, of being disruptive defensively and really making teams uncomfortable. All right, so we're 35 minutes in. It's Hogvillenet YouTube Live. It's always great to be with everybody post-game, especially after Arkansas wins. A lot easier to talk about. Again, go to Hogvillenet, man. Our written content there, we just try to cover everything from A to Z. We want you to have the best coverage in Razorback sports. Again, football, baseball, basketball, and beyond. We're really starting to, cast that wide net in coverage. So we want you to check that out. But we love having you on here, answering your questions, getting to interact like this. It's always a lot of fun. Again, when I look back at this game, I think Nick Smith Jr. in the post-game press conference, he said that he considered this his debut. And I can understand that. He only played 6 minutes. But if this is his debut and this is what the product can be, that has got to be scary for a lot of teams out there that know they've got Arkansas on the schedule coming up, whether that's non-conference, which they're mostly through now. They've got Baylor, that road game in the SEC Big 12 Challenge, that's going to be something else. But then you've got a loaded SEC field. This is going to be Arkansas's toughest SEC schedule, in my opinion, under Musselman because of the way the road games and the home games play out. You've got double duty. You've got the home and aways with Kentucky and Alabama. Arguably, if it's not Arkansas, those are two of the top 3 teams. And if you don't think it's one of them, maybe it's Auburn and Tennessee, and you play those teams on the road, and you only get them once. So, this is going to be a tough schedule for Arkansas. And then we haven't even mentioned some of these other teams. There are going to be other SEC teams that are better than we think they are. There may be some that end up, A&M was a team that's been briefly ranked. LSU, I thought they might not be as decent as they are right now. There's other ones. I haven't talked about all of them, but, we'll do that at another time. But the point is, this is the kind of game you want to have springboarding your way into December now, because we know once this month is over, you're fully in SEC play, and you got that other big SEC Big 12 Challenge on the road to Baylor. Reminds me a bit of the 90 Final Four team with a lot of depth and athleticism, young players. That was a really good that's a good comparison. That Arkansas team in 90, you had Todd Day, Lee Mayberry, Oliver Miller. They were sophomores. You had Mario Credit, and you had on that Final Four team, Ron Heary. They were the recruiting class 2 years before Day and Mayberry. If I'm not mistaken, Lindsey Howell was on that team. Arkansas had a mix. They had a mix of youth and veteran players, and talent. The talent was undeniable because you had multiple McDonald's All-Americans on that team. You had 3 just like this one. Not a bad comparison. That Arkansas team, I'll never forget when it went on the road and lost on the road against UNLV the season before, the famous game, Nolan better go get you some men game in Barnhill the next year. But Arkansas showed well against that loaded UNLV team that would go on and win the national championship that season that Arkansas made it to the Final Four. I think UNLV beat Duke by 30 in the title game. So happy Nick Smith came back with a strong game. Right. That's what you want to see. The 6 minutes, it was just getting on the court. Don't break a sweat. Just get out there. Let's see. Just you got to get off. You got to start somewhere. And then today, he played 18 of his 24 minutes in the first half. He went out. Devo checked in for him. I'm trying to remember exactly when that was in the first half. And then I think he was only out for a couple of minutes. He checked back in. So 18 minutes in that close, tight first half. Huge production value there, both as a scorer and a facilitator. Like I said, Arkansas had 15 consecutive points that Nick Smith either scored or assisted on. You lead by 5 at halftime. You blow the doors open early in the second half. He's got 5 points to fuel that run to get it to a double-digit lead. Game over, take him out. And I thought that was smart. He was on a minutes restriction, 24 minutes. That's plenty for him to do the work that he did and help his team get out, put this game away so that everybody else could also play. And then guys like Trevin Brazile, Ricky Council, Anthony Black, just keep producing. They keep, again, Brazile's been inconsistent, but he consistently comes back. So at some point he's going to figure it out and be more consistent game to game. I don't think you're going to be one on, one off as much. If you're Eric Musselman, you want 3 on, and no one's going to be great every night out, but you want to get to a 3-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio, and not 1-to-1. And so he's capable of that. In the postgame, Nick Smith said it. Just being locked in and playing like that more consistently. They were exciting. I didn't hear much about Johnson tonight. Right. Kamani's one of those guys, man. He's plug and play. He's not going to go out there every night and be that guy. Arkansas didn't need that guy tonight, number one. This was a runaway. And that's no knock on Kamani. He is a valuable part of this team. This team has 2 losses, if not for him. And you could argue the Troy game, he played 32 minutes and had a big impact there. And that was a close game down to the last 6 or 7 minutes. So Kamani Johnson means a lot to this team tonight. We see it all the time. Jalen Graham hasn't played in recent games. He comes in or contributed much when he did get a little bit of run tonight. Good for him. And this is why you have the kind of recruited depth. Don't think for a minute that after Arkansas lost and that Elite Eight to Duke, and you could see the positional difference on the interior outside of Jalen Williams, who had a double-double. He wasn't as athletic as Duke's bigs, and they had multiple. And so what does Musselman do when that season ends? He goes out, hits the portal, and within a week's time, he brings in 4 guys 6'9" or taller, the Mitchell twins, Brazil, and Jalen Graham, within a matter of a week, just right after the season ends. So here's a guy that understood what he wanted and how he wanted to engineer his lineups and the depth he wanted to be able to reach into to compete and be interchangeable with matchups. But also, it's not always about matchups. Sometimes some guys are off, and some guys you got to give them a chance. He talked about also in this press conference when he was talking about conditioning. When you have depth, guys can have fresh legs that haven't played, and that can be a difference. He thinks that's a big part of why Kamani was so effective, and probably Jalen Graham to some extent tonight too. Who is Arkansas's best player so far this year? I favor Council, but wouldn't argue against Brazil. Man, that is a tough question. I'm going to say the best player so far this year has been a toss-up. You could call it either way, Council or Anthony Black. Those are my answers right now. Anthony Black is a unique defender. He's probably been the most consistent backcourt defender. He's been Arkansas's leading assist guy. He's led the team in steals. He had those back-to-back 26-point games, something we didn't see coming. And then I think Council, he's been in double figures every game. He's Arkansas's leading scorer. He's the SEC's leading scorer. He does other things. He's probably been better defensively lately. And I think that's an area where he's still growing. So I think, it's a toss-up. I'm going to go with those two. And I think Brazil, because of the inconsistency, you got a 3-headed monster there, but he's had some off games. Ricky, and it's not close. Okay, that's nothing wrong with that answer. I think it's close, but I can understand that answer. Again, Ricky has been a special scorer. He's been an efficient scorer too. He's top 6 or 7, maybe top 8. I had this stat in my notebook, my pregame notebook, in field goal percentage on top of the point. So when you see scoring production, sometimes that's a loaded stat if you don't know what the efficiency numbers are. And he's been an efficient scorer. So there's nothing wrong with that answer. Again, I think it's a toss-up between Anthony Black. I could make a case either way. I kind of did going through some of it. Ricky has that dog in him. He sure does. Glad to see Devo back too. The assist to Rick, boy, that was a thing of beauty. That's a highlight reel play. There was a stretch also in the first half where Devo and Nick had back-to-back assists to Trevin Brazil rolling to the basket, and he finished those with and ones, which I thought was good because you not only want to see Trevin, who I thought had some good one-on-one plays breaking guys down and getting to the rim, you want to see him interacting with those guards and playing off their passes and finishing off those passes. Sometimes he doesn't finish strong, and I thought he did in both of those plays because they weren't just easy baskets. He got fouled on both, had to go to the free throw line, knocked down, and so you get 6 points out of those plays. Like, they're not, after 2 and ones, they're kind of almost back-to-back. Trevin is streaky. You're right, he's a little streaky. Who is our next opponent? Is it Bradley? I haven't looked at the schedule. Next opponent is Tuesday, back here at Bud Walton Arena in North Carolina, Greensboro. So the Razorbacks play again in just, a matter of, less than 72 hours, I guess 72 hours from now. And then they've got Oklahoma in Tulsa at the BOK Center for that rematch, neutral site game. That's on Saturday, a week from today. Arkansas, both are great players, though. Yeah, I mean, they are both great players. We can use the word great. One of the things I wrote, I did a feature story this week on Arkansas's backcourt, and then I think it's already shaping up to be elite, and I felt like Nick Smith coming back. We saw, again, some of that today. But when I use the word elite, I don't say that lightly. I don't just throw that out there. I mean, I just went through it. Ricky Council comes into today leading the SEC in scoring. He's efficient. Anthony Black, stuff in the stat sheet, and as a scorer. We didn't see that coming. We know what Nick Smith Jr. can do. We saw some of it today in only 24 minutes. By the way, 0 turnovers in that production. So there's 3 guys that at some point down the line, they may be all in not only the conversation for all league type of honors, but you could have more than one of those guys in a conversation for All-American honors. I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's there. The potential for that is valid. It's there, and we've seen some of it playing out. Obviously, we're going to see more of Nick Smith, but we've seen it played out with Council and Black, and I think that's why they've been your best 2 players so far. If Trevin Brazil unlocks the consistent night in, night out guy that we saw tonight and we've seen in other games, if he unlocks that and you start seeing some of these other supporting roles fill in to play to their strengths, and everybody, the chemistry continues to develop and evolve. Today it looked like a top 5 team, and it will look like a top 5 team. Musselman, one of the first things he said in the post game was, we were connected. So many times in past years when he's had newcomers, it's taken them a while to blend and look connected. I used to talk about the disconnectivity. That was the word I used last year over and over through December when Arkansas fell hard, and then early in SEC play. So when you're already starting to talk about being pleased with connectivity with 11 newcomers, man, that's a big statement. And again, the pieces are all there individually, and then I think Musselman's a master at figuring out how to get them to work together collectively and get the best out of them. To me, again, we're 8 games in now, 7-1. I think it's a Final Four type of roster. I do believe the difference between our coach and Kentucky's coach, Muss knows how to coach talent. I missed part of that. Develop talent, coach talent. Cal's been a successful coach. I would argue he's not been successful enough with all the players he's brought in there. He's still a great coach. I think I give the edge to Musselman. That's my opinion. Musselman's been at Arkansas. He's in his 4th year now. Arkansas has been a better team than Kentucky to this point. When you look at the arc of that, there's, it's still, a small sample size relative to how long Cal's been a college coach. When you go back, not so much Muss. He's still fairly new in this game. He's been a coach forever, but in the college game as a head coach, when you're starting to compare him to guys like Calipari and some of these other ones, he's new on the block. I wouldn't trade Muss for anybody. I mean, I look at the big 3: recruiting, results on the court, and then in this day and age of social media and how that plays into branding and other things, I think it all kind of snowballs and goes together. He's definitely number 1 in social media. He's had top 5 classes 2 of the last 3 years in recruiting, and then we've seen Arkansas in back-to-back Elite Eights and looking strong already. I mean, it's hard to argue that there's somebody else out there that you might want to have here at Arkansas right now. That's certainly, how I look at it. Again, it's Hogvillenet YouTube Live. I keep saying I'm going to wrap this now. I'm pushing 50 minutes. I'm surprised I still have enough battery to get through it. I really enjoy this. I want you to go to Hogvillenet, though, Hogville.net on the internet. Read our work there. 63 losses. Musselman has only lost 68 games in 8 college seasons, I believe. 63. Yeah, I mean, you look at the losses. By the way, I didn't mention this. Musselman picked up his 80th win. It's in my story. Picked up his 80th win at Arkansas. He's 80-29, so that's a great record. And this is a coach that when you look at what it's capable of, he might get to 100 wins this year. So you're 20. Right now you're 7-1. So if you get to 100, just to get there, you'll be 27 wins. So Arkansas can do that. It certainly can do that. Let's see. He definitely has Nolan Richardson fire. I think they have different kind of fire. If Arkansas makes it the Final Four better, do I think Hunter will make him the highest paid coach in the SEC? Maybe. I mean, it's going to be hard to beat Kentucky's payroll. Arkansas's program has money. You get to a Final Four after back-to-back Elite Eights. You've recruited like he has. I've talked about that. His branding is so good on social media. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that you could say justify making him that. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Let's see how this season goes. Right now, I would say it's too soon to do that, my opinion. Obviously, a Final Four or better, you got to start thinking about something like that, because that's, how hard is it for anybody to get to one Elite Eight? You get to back-to-back and then you get to a Final Four. That's elite stuff, and so you need to be compensated as an elite guy. We can say all day long that we think he's an elite coach, but if he does that, he's pretty much cemented it. Anybody that's writing checks. So that's a good point to be made there. Someone else might have a different opinion that makes decisions. So that's just my take on it. If he brings home a natty blank check, well, everything's got a price within reason. All right, we're starting to freeze up here. I think we're getting low on battery. 50 minutes, we made it this time. Great to be with you on Hogvillenet YouTube Live. We may do a pregame Tuesday before Arkansas plays Greensboro, but we'll definitely do a postgame. Can't wait to be back with you. Thanks for coming and joining in today.